He packed her bags while she was sleeping. Not while she was out, not while they were arguing. While she was lying right beside him in their bed, breathing and trusting, and completely unaware that the man whose back was touching hers was quietly folding her dresses into a suitcase and deciding that she was no longer worth keeping. Stop whatever you are doing right now, because this story is going to rearrange something inside you. Subscribe to this channel immediately and drop a comment telling us where you are watching from, because we want to see how far this story travels. Now, let us go. Nwa had been married to Aôndo for 5 years. 5 years of waking up before sunrise to make sure his shirt was ironed and his food was hot and his shoes were polished and his world was perfectly ordered. 5 years of being the kind of wife that other women pointed at from across the room and said, "See how she loves that man." 5 years of believing that if she just loved him hard enough and long enough and quietly enough, he would eventually love her back the way he used to. That morning, she was at the stove, stirring a pot, when she heard his footsteps stop behind her. She did not turn around immediately. She had learned to read his footsteps the way sailors read weather. The way they stopped told her everything she needed to know before he opened his mouth. Nwa, she turned slowly. He was fully dressed, shirt pressed without a single crease, tie straight, shoes that caught the kitchen light and threw it back. He looked at her the way a landlord looks at a property he has already decided to sell. His eyes moved from her face slowly downward, her shoulders, her stomach, her hips, then back up to her face. Then he exhaled, long and deliberate, and loaded with everything he thought of her. "I have been patient," he said. Her fingers tightened around the wooden spoon. "Aôndo, what is this?" His voice was soft. That was the thing about Aôndo. He was never loudest when he was most dangerous. Loud voices she had learned to stand against. His soft voice went straight through every defense she had. "I am looking at myself," she said. "Are you?" He tilted his head slightly. "Because what I am seeing is not the woman I married." Mwese placed the spoon down carefully on the counter. She had made herself a promise at 4 a.m. that morning while lying awake beside him, listening to him sleep without any difficulty at all. She had lain there in the dark and made herself one specific promise. No crying this morning, Mwese. No begging. No making yourself small so he feels big. She had repeated it quietly until it felt solid. "My body went through 2 losses," she said. Her voice was steady, and she was genuinely proud of how steady it was. "You were there for both of them. You held my hand in that hospital room. You heard what the doctor said about the medication." "I was there," he agreed. "But the doctor also said the side effects could be managed with discipline. You chose not to manage them." She stared at him. "I chose not to manage them? You chose food instead." Something in the kitchen changed temperature. The air shifted. "Say that again," she said, very quietly. Aôndo straightened his tie in the reflection of the kitchen window. "My colleagues ask me questions, Mwese. People who knew you before see you now and they ask me questions. Do you understand what that does to a man?" "Do you understand?" she said, and her voice was shaking now, despite everything she had promised herself. "What it does to a woman to watch her pregnancies end and have her husband respond by being embarrassed." He turned to face her fully. "This is not about the pregnancies anymore." "Then what is it about?" "It is about respect." He looked directly at her. "It is about looking like someone's wife. It is about me walking into a room with you and not seeing pity in people's eyes." He paused. "You have let yourself go completely, and you are acting like I am the problem for noticing." The word embarrassed had landed in her chest 20 seconds ago and was still sitting there, like something thrown hard. Please tell us right now where you are watching from. Drop it in the comments. We would like to hear from you. And please subscribe, because what happens next in this kitchen will make your blood run cold. What Mwese was only about to discover was that while she had been standing at that stove, stirring that pot, and repeating her 4 a.m. promise to herself, the suitcase had already been packed. He had done it the previous night, after she fell asleep. He had climbed quietly out of bed, gone to the bottom of the wardrobe, and filled the small grey suitcase with her clothes, her church wrappers, her mother's jewelry box, the small framed photograph from their first year together, when he used to rest his chin on top of her head when they stood together, and call her his pride in front of anyone who would listen. He had packed her entire life into a bag while she slept beside him, and she had felt nothing. Not one shift in the mattress was wrong enough to wake her. Not one sound was sharp enough. She had slept peacefully through her own removal. When he walked back into the kitchen, dragging the suitcase behind him, she did not understand what she was seeing for a full 3 seconds. Her brain refused the image. "What is that?" she said. "You know what it is." "Aôndo." Her voice broke on his name. "I cannot continue like this." He said it with the calm practicality of someone closing a business account. "Come back when you have sorted yourself out, when you look the way a wife should look, when I can walk into a room with you without people talking." He placed the suitcase by the front door. "I am not ending the marriage. I am giving you a condition." She looked at the bags, then at him, then at the wedding photo on the wall above the dining table. The photo from the day he held her face in both hands at the altar and told the entire families and everyone who came that she was the finest thing God had ever made, and he did not deserve her, but he was going to spend his life trying to. "A condition," she repeated. "Yes. You are giving your wife a condition like she is a contract negotiation?" He opened the front door and held it open. He did not speak again. He did not need to. Everything was already said. She understood that this was not a conversation anymore. This had stopped being a conversation the night before when he went to the wardrobe in the dark. Everything this morning was just the delivery of a decision already made. She walked through the door. It slammed behind her. She stood in the corridor with her 2 bags. A neighbor's door was cracked open, eyes watching through the gap. Someone's television was on behind a closed door. The corridor fluorescent light hummed above her head. Her whole body felt hollowed out and filled with something cold. She sat on the floor beside her suitcase. Not for drama, her legs had simply run out of reasons to hold her up. She sat there for a long time. Then slowly, with the specific, quiet determination of a woman who refuses absolutely to let a corridor be the place her story ends, she stood up. She picked up both bags and she walked toward the stairs. Outside was both better and worse. Better because the city did not know. Worse because the city did not care. Lagos was already in full motion. Bus conductors shouting destinations, hawkers arranging their goods, children in school uniforms running past gates, the whole enormous, indifferent machinery of the city turning without pausing for one woman dragging 2 bags and a shattered heart down a Surulere street. Mwese walked without direction. She had not called Tedu yet. She knew she needed to call Tedu. Tedu was her person, had been since secondary school. The kind of friend who answered calls at 3 a.m. without attitude and arrived at crisis locations with food and no unnecessary questions. But calling Tedu meant saying the words out loud, and saying the words meant it was fully real. And for just a few more minutes, she needed it to stay only partially real. So she walked. She walked until the wheel capped on a busy junction. The wheel caught on a raised crack in the road and snapped completely, and the zipper gave way at the same moment, and suddenly everything she owned was scattered across the road between moving cars and impatient motorbike tires. Her dresses, her wrappers, the small framed photo from her traditional wedding ceremony, her mother's jewelry box that she had packed without even consciously deciding to. Horns blasted. Someone shouted from inside a danfo, "Madam, shift now!" Someone else laughed. A woman leaning from a bus window said something about her size that arrived like a physical strike. Moise dropped to her knees on the road and began gathering her things with shaking hands. Tears were already falling, and she was not even fully aware of them. She had cried so much since 4 a.m. that her body had apparently decided to continue without requiring her conscious participation. Then a car stopped. A dark SUV. It pulled to the side of the road and sat with its engine running. Nobody came out immediately. Then the driver's door opened and a man stepped out. Tall, simple white shirt, dark trousers. He walked toward her without urgency, without the performed energy of someone doing a public good deed, without the expression of a man expecting to be noticed for his kindness. He bent down and picked up the photograph frame from the road first. He looked at it briefly, then he held it toward her. Their eyes met. His eyes were calm, not pitying, not curious, just completely present. The kind of eyes that do not need anything from you at all. "Is this yours?" he asked. "Yes." He bent down and began helping her gather the rest of her things without asking permission. He folded one of her wrappers carefully before placing it back in the broken suitcase. Moise watched him fold it, and something about that specific gesture, the care of it, the deliberate respect of it, the fact that a stranger on a Lagos road was handling her scattered clothes with more dignity than her husband had handled their marriage, cracked something completely open in her chest. She started crying the way she had been preventing herself from crying all morning, properly, from somewhere deep. He did not offer a tissue. He did not say it will be okay or ask what happened. He simply kept folding and gathering until everything was back inside the broken suitcase. Then he stood up. "My name is Kwaha," he said. She wiped her face. "Moise." "Where are you going, Moise?" She had no answer. She had Tedu's general direction, and beyond that, absolutely nothing. No plan, no destination, just 2 bags and a broken wheel and a wedding photograph and the specific emptiness of someone whose entire life has just been reorganized without their knowledge or consent. "I don't know yet," she said honestly. Kwaha looked at the broken suitcase, then at her. "Let me drive you." "I don't know you." "You don't," he agreed simply. "But that suitcase is finished, and you look like someone who has been through something serious today. I am not asking for anything. Just tell me where you need to go." Every reasonable instinct said no, but her legs were genuinely exhausted, and her arms were aching, and sometimes in life, the reasonable choice and the necessary choice are not the same thing. She nodded. "Drop a comment right now. Tell me where you are watching this from. Has this story gripped you? Like this video right now so more people can find it. And keep watching, because what happens next is the part that changes everything." Kwak drove her to Tedu's house. He carried the broken suitcase upstairs without being asked. He greeted Tedu with the quiet courtesy of someone who maintained no performance. Before he left, he set a card on the small table near the door. "I am a rehabilitation therapist," he said. "I work with bodies that have been through physical and emotional trauma. What your body has experienced, 2 pregnancy losses, hormonal treatment, sustained emotional damage, that is not weakness, that is injury. If you ever want to work on healing it properly, call me." He did not wait for a response. He simply left. Moise stared at the card on the table. Tedu closed the door, then she turned and looked at Moise with the expression of a woman who needs every single detail and needs it now. Moise sat on the couch and told her everything. The suitcase he packed while she slept, the kitchen, the word embarrassed, the condition, the door, the road, all of it. Her voice fractured in 3 places, but she got through it. When she finished, Tedu was silent for exactly 4 seconds. Then she stood and said in a very controlled voice, "I need you to tell me where that man is right now." "Tedu, I am asking calmly, where is he?" "Please sit down." Tedu sat, but her jaw was working. He packed your bags the night before, while you were sleeping beside him. What kind of coldness lives that quietly in a person? Moise said nothing. You are staying here, Tedu said. I do not want to hear anything about small space or the landlord because I will sort the landlord. You are staying here and that is the end of that. Moise nodded. Then she lay down on the couch and pulled her knees up and closed her eyes. Tedu covered her with a blanket and went to the kitchen. The sounds of cooking came through, the smell of something warm starting. For the first time since 4 a.m., Moise felt something that was not keen, not happiness, not yet, just the small, merciful absence of being completely alone. She slept for 11 hours. On the 9th day, Aôndo called. His name appeared on her screen and her entire body reacted before her mind could prepare a response. Her hands shook. Her stomach dropped. Something in her chest lifted with a hope she immediately despised herself for. She answered, Moise. His voice was different, softer, carrying something that sounded almost like regret, or the closest thing to regret that a man like him could produce. I have been thinking. She waited. I am willing to give you time, he said. 6 months. Show me progress and we can talk about you coming home. The word home moved through her like cold water. She sat with the phone pressed to her ear. 6 months. He was sitting in the apartment she had spent 5 years building into a home, and he was offering her a 6-month timeline to earn her way back into it. He was offering her a deadline to become acceptable enough to return to her own life. Aôndo, she said. Yes? No. Silence. What? No. Harder this time. Cleaner. Not 6 months. Not 6 years. No. He exhaled. She heard the specific sound of a man recalibrating. You are being emotional, she ended the call. She sat for 30 seconds with the phone in her lap. Then she reached across and picked up Quag's card from the table. She stared at it. Then she typed a message. I am ready to start. His reply came in under 2 minutes. 6:30 tomorrow morning. The park near your friend's house. She put the phone down and looked at the window. The Lagos evening coming in orange and slow. A child laughing somewhere outside. Tedu singing something under her breath in the kitchen. Life continuing with its ordinary, relentless insistence. Okay, she thought. Okay. The first morning was humbling in ways she had not prepared herself for. She arrived at the park at 6:25 wearing Tedu's leggings and an oversized top. Quag was already there, stretching near the pathway entrance. He looked up when he saw her and smiled, not the smile of someone assessing what they see, the genuine, uncomplicated smile of someone who is simply glad a person showed up. Good morning, he said. Good morning. She looked at the pathway ahead. What are we doing? Walking. She blinked. That is all? That is all? The first 15 minutes were manageable. The next 15 were harder. By 30 minutes, her lungs were burning, her legs were filing formal complaints, and her body, which had not been asked to do anything intentional in almost 2 years, was making its displeasure comprehensively known. Can we stop? She asked, between breaths. Quag was walking beside her at exactly her pace. He had not pushed ahead once. We can slow down, he said. We are not stopping. I genuinely cannot breathe properly. You are breathing. Your body is just surprised. It forgot it could do this. What if I collapse? I am a rehabilitation therapist. I will catch you. She almost laughed. She had not almost laughed in 9 days. That almost laugh felt like the first small piece of something being rebuilt. They finished the 40 minutes. She sat on a park bench and put her face in both hands. I hate this, she announced dramatically. Quag sat beside her. Tell me something you used to love doing, before everything. She thought. Dancing. I danced in the kitchen when I cooked, always. When did you stop? She did not need long to find that answer. When he started watching. Quag was quiet for a moment. Dance in Tedu's kitchen tonight. Nobody is watching there. She looked at him sideways. That is your professional recommendation? One part of it, he said. That evening, she danced in Tedu's kitchen. Badly at first, self-consciously, then less consciously. Then Tedu came in and joined her, and they were both ridiculous and laughing and breathless, and it was the first time Moese had laughed with her entire body in longer than she could accurately measure. Comment right now and tell me where you are watching from. Drop your city or your country in the comments. And subscribe if you have not, because the part you have been waiting for is very close and you cannot miss it. Weeks passed, then months. Kwa taught her things that had nothing to do with how her body looked and everything to do with how her body felt. Breathing, strength, how to eat in a way that nourished rather than punished, how to replace emotional eating with movement and rest, and the occasional fierce, honest conversation with Tedu on the couch at midnight when the hard thoughts came. But the most important work was not physical. The most important work happened one evening, 3 months in, sitting on a park bench after their session, when Kwa asked her a question nobody had ever asked her before. What do you think of yourself? He said. Not what Tedu think of you, not what other people think. What do you actually think about yourself? She opened her mouth, then closed it. Take your time, he said. She sat with it for almost a full minute. Then she said quietly, I think I am someone who loves other people more than she loves herself. Kwa nodded. Is that a good quality? I used to think so. And now? She looked at the trees at the edge of the park, evening light moving through the leaves. Now, I think it is only a good quality if the person you love most is also you. Kwa looked at her. Something in his expression shifted. Just slightly, just enough. He looked at her the way a person looks at a sentence they did not write but desperately wish they had. Say that again, he said softly. She smiled. No, you heard it. He laughed, and she laughed, and something between them that had been building steadily and quietly for months became fully undeniable to both of them at exactly the same moment. Neither of them named it that evening, but it had been named. 6 weeks later, he walked her to Tedu's gate after their session, as he often did now. They stood at the gate in the early evening light. He looked at her for a moment. Can I tell you something? He said. Yes. The first morning I saw you on that road, gathering your clothes off the ground, crying, I thought this person is in pain. But what I thought immediately after was, this person is still moving. Most people in that situation sit down and wait to be rescued. You were already trying to fix it yourself. She was quiet. I thought you should know that. That is who you were even at your worst moment. She looked up at him. The evening was doing something gentle with the light. He was close enough that when she said thank you softly, it barely needed to travel. He leaned forward and kissed her forehead. Gentle, deliberate, the way you touch something you refuse to damage. She closed her eyes. When she opened them, he was looking at her steadily. Too much? He asked quietly. She shook her head. No. He smiled, then stepped back. Good night, Moesi. Good night, Kwa. She walked inside. Tedu was on the couch with groundnuts watching a program. She looked up at Moesi's face. She slowly put the groundnut down. What happened? Nothing happened. Your face is contradicting you completely. Moesi sat down and said nothing, but she was smiling in a way that her face had not remembered how to do in a very long time. Tedu looked at her for a long moment. Then she grabbed her groundnut back and said quietly, I knew it. From the day he folded that wrapper on the road, I knew it. 8 months after she left with 2 bags and a broken wheel, Kwaski asked her to dinner. Not as a coach, as a man who had spent 8 months watching someone rebuild themselves from the foundation and had very specific feelings about what he had witnessed. Tedu dressed her with the ceremony of someone preparing a bride. She circled her 3 times, adjusted the dress, checked the earrings, then stepped back and went completely quiet. "Mue," she said softly, "look." Moise looked in the mirror. She was not thinner than she had been on her wedding day to Aôndo. She was not the size she was the morning he packed her bags. She was the exact size she was today. But today she was standing differently. Her shoulders were back without effort. Her chin was level. Her eyes were clear and direct and not apologizing for anything. She was not making herself smaller for anyone's comfort. She was taking up exactly the space she was entitled to take up. Tedu placed her hand on her shoulder. "That is the one that was always there," she said. "He just made you forget her for a while." The restaurant was on the island, elegant, candle-lit. Kwaski stood when she walked in, the gesture natural and unrehearsed, and looked at her for 1 full second before saying anything. Then he said, "You look breathtaking." "You say that every time, because it is accurate every time." They were mid-conversation, mid-laughter, mid-something that felt specifically like a life that had decided to treat her well, when Moise heard a voice behind her. She recognized it before she turned around. Aôndo was at a table 3 meters away. Beside him was a young woman, Itiaf, early 20s, small-framed, wearing the confident expression of someone who does not yet understand what it will cost her to be the woman this particular man has chosen. Aôndo saw Moise at the same moment. His face moved through shock, then confusion, then the unmistakable expression of a man who is standing fully inside a mistake he cannot reverse. He stood up and walked over. "Moise." His voice was stripped of everything. The coldness was gone. Something desperate and genuine had taken its place, and she recognized it immediately as the sound of a man who has understood something too late. "You look..." He stopped, started again. "You look different." "I am different," she said. "I made a mistake." He said it plainly. "I know I made a mistake." Itiaf had followed him. "Aôndo, who is this?" She looked between them. "You said you were not married." He did not look at her. His eyes were entirely on Moise. "Come home," he said. His voice dropped lower. "Please, Moise, come home." The restaurant had gone the particular quiet of a room full of people pretending very hard not to listen. Kwag sat across the table. He did not stand. He did not intervene. He looked at Moise with the settled patience of a man who knows exactly what she's about to say, because he has spent 8 months learning precisely who she is. Moise stood slowly. She looked at Aôndo. She looked at him the way you look at a place you once lived that you have since completely moved on from, with clear recognition, without a single fragment of longing. "You packed my bags while I was sleeping," she said. Her voice was quiet and it did not shake once. "You prepared my removal the night before while I lay beside you, trusting you. You gave me a condition, like I was in negotiation. You told me to come back when I looked like a woman." She paused. "I was a woman that morning in the corridor with my suitcases. I was a woman on the road on my knees in traffic. I was a woman in my best friend's spare room at 2 a.m. with nothing except 2 bags and a stranger's card. I did not need to change anything about myself to be a woman, Aôndo. I only needed to leave you." The nearest table started clapping, then another, then the sound moved through the entire restaurant like something that had been waiting for permission. Etiav picked up her bag. "You said you were not married," she said, one final time, and walked away without waiting for a response. Aôndo stood there, his mouth opened slightly, then closed. Then he walked back to his empty table and sat down completely alone. And Moise did not watch him do it because she had already turned back to the table where Quag was sitting and smiling at her with the full warm pride of a man who was never in any doubt. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Yes," she said. She sat down and picked up her glass. "I really am." She filed for divorce the next morning. Barrister Hemba was efficient and precise. The messages, the neighbor statements, the medical records documenting every treatment that caused the weight change. Aôndo did not contest. He sat in the courtroom with the posture of a man who arrived already knowing the verdict. The divorce was granted. Outside the courthouse, Tedu screamed loud enough that the security guards looked over. Quag stood to the side, quietly smiling. Moise looked up at the Lagos sky and breathed out slowly and completely. 4 months later, at the park where they first walked, together, Quag went down on one knee. He held the ring box open and looked up at her in the early morning light on the same path where 8 months ago she had told him she could not do this, and he had told her she already was. "I am not asking because of what you became," he said. His voice was steady, but his eyes were full. "I am asking because of who you were, even at your worst moment, on a road, on your knees, still trying." She was already crying before he finished. "Yes," she said. "Yes." He put the ring on her finger and stood up and kissed her. Not on the forehead this time, fully. The way you kiss someone when you are completely certain and deeply grateful and not willing to waste one more second of the time you have been given together. Somewhere behind them, Tedu was crying. She had followed at a distance because she suspected, and she was absolutely not going to miss it. At the wedding, Moise stood alone before the mirror for one moment before walking out. Her dress was beautiful. Her makeup was soft and simple. She looked at her reflection and she smiled. Not the practiced one, not the one she had worn for years while performing fine for a man who did not deserve the truth. The real one, the one that arrived on her face without asking anyone's permission. The woman Aôndo packed into a suitcase in the dark had become a woman who packed her own life exactly the way she wanted it and walked into it with both hands completely open. Subscribe to this channel right now if this story moved you. Drop a like so this video can reach someone who needs to hear it today. And tell us in the comments where you are watching from and what this story made you feel. I read every single comment. New story coming very soon, and you do not want to miss what is coming next.